So are there public here that would like to participate?
I would like to participate.
Okay.
That work. All right,
So-
somebody's coming back.
Are people coming in?
Well, I think it's Anna again. Yep. Yep. That's area code 617. Just hit *6 and we should be able to hear you. *6.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Now,
This is Anna.
Thank
And
you.
*6 will also mute you both ways.
And just so you know, we've been waiting to try and get everybody back that we turned away earlier. So I appreciate your patience and work in getting back here. And I think we are ready to go now. So Heather, go for it.
Yeah. So my name is Heather Veneta. I have a first grader at Heartland. And first off, I just wanted to thank Heartland Elementary for providing such a safe place for our kids. And I really appreciate all the hard work that they've put in. I teach as well, and I know how much work it is and how amazing Heartland has been. So I just want them to be recognized for just being unbelievable. And I want to thank Ruby's first grade teacher, Miss Kramer, for being on the dream team of first grade teachers with her and Anna. The two of them have been unbelievable with their communication and everything that they've done for our kids. And I feel like, we got so lucky that we've got such great first grade teachers. I have a lot of questions and a lot of things. So I have four main questions. And so my first question is I was looking through the reopening documents that were sent out, obviously, way back. And I was wondering who the medical professional is that's on your team that's making district decisions.
Yeah, it's Mary Bender, who's she's a pediatrician at the Mount Scottney Hospital. And also, there's one other one, Christine, who is it?
Otella.
Otella Perry, who also works at Mount Scottney Hospital. Two of them.
Okay. And how involved are they in the decision-making process of how the district is deciding things?
Yeah, they come to every meeting and they're quite vocal.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then my next question is what are the metrics that you guys are using to assess student academic achievement during the half-day schedules, as well as their sort of social emotional well-being with the half-day schedule?
I don't know, Christine, if you want to take that. I mean, right now we are using, we didn't have any state testing last year, so the baseline is pretty weak, but we do still use Track My Progress, which is our local assessment. We do that 3 times a year. And we did do that in the fall, which would have been assessing pretty much all of that craziness that went on last spring into the summer. But Christine, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, we did do TMPs in, I think it was early October. We take them again when we return from the remote week after the holiday break. And teachers in first grade use Fontes and Pinnell, running records, local, classroom assessments. Social emotional, that's a great question, Heather. And I don't know that we have a metric that we use across, all students in a grade level. I mean, we use, teacher feedback, parent concerns, teacher concerns, and talk about kids through our MTSS process when we're sensing an issue or a student needs support. One of our guidance counselors teaches social emotional learning, so she has a pretty good pulse on the kids and where they're at, but nothing formal that comes to mind.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then my next question is how are the remote days being decided?
In terms of when we use a remote day?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think originally we set up a calendar based on what we knew at the time. We adjusted it after, this time after the holiday break, based on conversations with the task force and our concerns about quarantine. I guess if that answers that question, David. If I missed something.
I think that answers it pretty much. I mean, there was, if you remember, right before the holidays is when we started to see that surge and spike in all over the state, pretty much, including the Upper Valley, Windsor County, too, in particular. And I think there was some talk about how evasive we wanted to be with parents and families around, where were you? Who did you travel with? Who did you see? What were you doing in the holiday? We just didn't want to have to go there. So it was a compromise essentially to allow people time to quarantine and test if they in fact had not followed the governor's orders. We hoped they would, but we just didn't know. So the task force talked about that quite a bit. And I think, quite frankly, a lot of what comes to the table at the task force, because there are a fair number of staff members on that task force. And I think, that's where a lot of that anxiety lies, because they're the frontline workers, right? They're the ones that are in the classroom. They're the ones that have their own children at home. They have their aging parents. Some of them, live in New Hampshire. Some of them live in Vermont. And so I think their voice was strong at the table around, could we err on the side of a little extra caution and take that week. So that's what we did. And that's what we're going to do during the winter break as well.
Got it. And then my next question is just a personal experience. So I teach at Woodstock Union High School, and right now I've got 8 of your Heartland graduates in my 9th grade class. And of a few of those, I have a few that have brothers and sisters that are still at Heartland Elementary. And so the week after Thanksgiving, there I was teaching the older brothers and older sisters while their brothers and sisters were at home. And I was just wondering if we're talking about the fact that, like the governor has stated several times that the spread of corona is a community spread and not a school spread, like how that makes sense that like I've got the older brothers and sisters and the other ones are at home or like having childcare somewhere else. And also like over Thanksgiving break, we stayed home. We didn't do our normal family thing down in Massachusetts. And when we had the remote week, the family that stayed home and, did everything by the rules, I then had to, between my 2 children, who my other one is in pre-K, I had to send them together like in 6 different childcare situations so that I could teach my students, and my husband works at Dartmouth Hospital. And so we staying home, was the thing that kept us safe, yet then we had to turn around and send our kids out into the community to 6 different locations, to go back. And I'm just wondering how this idea of community spread and putting our kids into the community as opposed to keeping them safe at school where there hasn't been any sort of spread, how that's being looked at.
Yeah, well, to answer the first part of your question, we do meet as Southeast superintendents. Actually, we've been meeting weekly, and we do try to coordinate. But every community is different. Every staff is different. Every union contract is different. So we haven't been able to all agree on those weeks after the holidays. I wish we would. I wish we could, but we do talk about it, and we've. And a matter of fact, everybody's talking about what's going to happen after the winter break now. Some have made the decision, some have not made the decision. And it's all over the place. Some are out for a week, some are out for 2 weeks, some aren't out at all. And so that, I know that creates some anxiety or angst because we are a region. I mean, I get that. We are regional. I mean, it's the other question I think that you asked about community spread versus school spread. that's got a couple of heads to that coin, right? I mean, are we safe in schools because we are taking these extra cautions and we're not allowing, especially when the spike is higher? I mean, I don't know. I know schools are doing a real good job about masking and distancing and all of those things. But I talked to my colleagues who did not take that week after Thanksgiving, including your interim superintendent or acting superintendent in Woodstock. And what the general consensus was when they came back on that November 30th, they had to send a fair number of staff members and kids home. I don't know if that impacted your school or not, but we had to deal with less than a handful. We didn't have to send anybody home. Well, first of all, we were out that week, but the second week we didn't really have to contend with that. I mean, I'm just talking about the ones in our immediate Springfield, Hartford, Woodstock. They said that they did have to ask that question, did you travel? And they got a fair number of people who said yes. And they had to keep those kids home. And that's not good either. So it's a tough call. And I'm not saying we're making the right decision. I'm just saying, we're making a grouped collaborative decision, trying to, err on the side of caution and trying to keep these kids in. I don't know what's going to happen after the holiday, I think it's going to be harder for people to not travel during Christmas than it was during Thanksgiving, but I guess we'll find out soon.
I hear you. I don't know if I agree, but that's okay. We don't have to agree.
No, I get
and
it.
then my last question has to do with looking about going back to full days. Is there like a committee that is looking at how other districts are doing full days for students so that we can get our kids back to doing full days as well?
Yes, we are looking at that. And Christine, you might want to speak to this one too, or anybody else who wants to. The communities surrounding us that are going full days right now that I know of, and I don't know, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Woodstock plan. But generally, those full days are 2 days in and then 2 days out, or a day in, a day out, an A-B schedule or an A-A-B-B schedule. And so that, because what happens is you've got to keep your numbers relatively low, and you've got to keep kids in pods, and you've got to keep that protection. So that's why we decided and by the way, we are talking about extending the day. We haven't made a final decision yet, but that's why, because we're trying to keep every single child coming to school that wants to come to school.
Totally. So how Woodstock Elementary did it is right from the get-go, they made a decision that K through 2 would go back 4 full days a week, with Wednesday being a remote day. So they're back 4 full days. And then right before the Thanksgiving break, they switched K through 6. And K through 6 is now back 4 days, full days as well. And they've got much larger class sizes. And for the kids that the classrooms weren't big enough to keep them 3 to 6 feet apart, those kids are still on an every other day schedule. But that's not very many classrooms. So like, for instance, if Ruby was in a first grade class in Woodstock, she would have like almost double the amount of kids in her class right now. I think they're up to like 17 in a class. And I know that right now she's got 10. So there are, it would be great if, we could, whatever committee can be set up to like look at other schools, other elementary schools. Like, I understand like our middle school is with our high school, and they're not, like we're doing every other, and it's all about, space issue, which I totally get.
Right.
But there are models out there where people, where schools are doing full day with the K through 6 at least, because right now they're the most vulnerable at home. Like, who knows what's going on at home. So I feel like we should be putting some major emphasis on getting, a class size of 10 back to school, full day. And I know, the reason why Heartland's, one of the reasons why it's so fantastic is because, my child has one amazing teacher with a 8 in the room. And also, she's one of 10, which is amazing. And I think that should be our strength. And because that's our strength, that's, we can stay within all the guidelines. And I think you can get kids back to school full time.
Now some of the parents that we've talked to, because it's a small community, right? I mean, I've got a daughter that teaches in Hartford. We know people from Woodstock. We've got, so we keep in touch. The general word on the 4 days and then a remote day, or 2 days and then another group comes in for 2 days, that was also disruptive to parents, right? That they didn't like having to kind of figure that all out, and there wasn't a good continuity of learning for the kids. I mean, I've heard that argument made by staff members and by some parents, but let me ask you a question. In Woodstock, I understand you got the 1 remote day and the 4 days. Are you saying there are still some classes that are too big, so they have to go every other day? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, not K through 3 or K through 4. There's just a few classes at Woodstock Elementary.
Like 5, 6 or whatever. Yeah.
That the class size is just too big, and they can't fit everybody in a room.
No. Well, the younger ones are the ones, and that we know this, and our staff knows this, and the younger ones, K2 especially, K2 I would say, K4, is probably the next tier, but 3, 4, but yeah, they struggle the most with some of that remote learning. I think our staff has worked hard to figure it out, but it certainly is not. It certainly is not easy. Let me ask you one other question. When you're doing full days, and you're in pods, right? So the kids can't. Do the kids go down to the gym and go to the art room and go?
Absolutely. I mean, I've got every day I've got almost 50 students, and I teach 5 classes, and I have they're all in different classes, and so A block rings, I get them for 55 minutes, and there's one group, and then the bell rings, and then I get a different group of kids. And the only thing, we're required to wash desks and such before and make sure kids, hands are clean on their way in. But it is like they go to art class, they go to all their classes that they normally had.
Yeah. So a group of 10 kids, well, and again, I'm not being critical, would go to an art room where 10 other kids had just left, right? And that teacher would be expected to sanitize.
Yeah, I mean, literally, we have a spray, and I spray the tables, and I use buckets in my classroom. I don't use desks because I didn't want to have to wash desks between classes. So I got approved to just have kids sit on Home Depot buckets, which works fantastic, and they all have their own clipboards. And the bottom line is that when the bell rings, if you're someone who has desks, they spray the desk down, and it has to sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and then they wipe it off, and the next group comes in. And that's following all the guidelines that are in place.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we haven't done and haven't had to do, and I don't want to dominate. So if anybody else, Christine, I don't know if you have any comments. You're in that building every day. You see what happens with kids in those pods.
This is Beth Roy, a board member, and I just think one thing I really appreciate with our 5 days in person is really talking about equitable access, because if we talked about even spending 1 day remote at home, there would be children that just would be missing 1 day of school, period. And so I think right now, the way it is, I think it is more of an equitable access to education, even though it's not a full day. I mean, I would love a full day, totally understand it, but I think I really appreciate the thought of trying to make sure that the majority of students are getting as much education as they can within our school system.
Brittany, is that you or is that Christine? I'm sorry.
No, sorry, this is Beth Roy. Board member.
I'm like, I don't know whose voice this is and I can't see. I agree with that, but what's the difference between kids being there till 12:30 or kids being there till 2:45. Like the contact is still the same. Like they're still in the building, they're still doing like the same thing. So what's the difference?
So
Sorry, I wasn't questioning that in the sense of length of day. I was talking about having remote days versus non-remote days versus the week.
Got it.
yeah, and I can speak, Heather, it's Christine.
Thank you.
I think our plan from the get-go was to keep kids in pods with the same adults. We rotate our specialists into pods for a period of time, so they're not going to the art room. The art teacher is assigned to a pod, and she is delivering instruction within the classroom, the core teacher's classroom. And we are in this discussion of lengthening the day because we all know kids need to be in school. They need to be in school longer if we can manage it. And our goal is to do that, but still keep our pods intact, which means that a teacher is with his or her class from the time those kids arrive until the time they go home, which they're doing. And you're right, our staff's pretty incredible, and they're making this work. In lengthening the day and keeping them still in that pod structure, there's still some things that they need, which is what we're wrestling with right now. Which they need time to eat lunch, they need time to do some preparation for teaching. So we are looking at that. I will say I thought we're headed in that direction, and with the transmission numbers climbing, I've got some anxious staff members. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, it is anxiety provoking, as you probably know, because you're in the classroom, and everybody carries that a little bit differently. So agreed. We are in discussion and totally recognize there are other schools that are back more than we are, and I think that's one of the reasons we're having a serious discussion about it.
Are you looking at their models though? Like, because I understand, like, me being trapped in a room with first graders all day would be like my nightmare. But like, so I totally understand that. But again, like, are we looking at the models of how other schools are doing this? It's not just Woodstock.
Yep.
Because I feel like if there are other people out there who are doing this safely, it's like, it's the thing for us to look for to try to mimic what they're doing.
That I agree with you. I do attend an administrators meeting every Friday with elementary school principals across the state, and it is all over the place. It is absolutely all over the place. I haven't collected data, but I hear people talk about the AB schedule, the pod structures they've put in place, how they're using their specialists. But a fair point. I mean, I think looking at and maybe the VPA can help with that. Looking at collecting some data on it to see what's working, and it is dependent on what staff you have and how many kids you have. That all has an impact.
Yeah, and I did do, as Christine said, I did do. We looked at the AB model. We looked at the 4 days in, 1 day out, and when we did the math, and part of this is what Beth Roy was trying to say, instructionally, our kids actually, because when you think about 1 day out every week for 36 weeks, you do the hours and the minutes and the whole 9 yards. I mean, it becomes a fair amount of time that those kids are going remote, especially those kids that can't go remote, right? That they really struggle with that. So when we extend the day, we want to extend that day again so that all kids can have access. If we go from the 4 hours we have now to 5 hours, or we're not sure what it's going to look like. We're working with that task force right now, but we have looked at those models, and we've run some of the metrics on those schedules, and it just didn't look like. It just didn't look like the number of minutes we gain, and sometimes we'd lose minutes, was gonna then make up for kids traveling around the building, teachers having to sanitize their own rooms and desks. It was a little bit of an issue, but I mean, we're in the middle of talking about it right now. So your comments are very, very timely.
Okay. Well, I feel like I've hijacked like the entire meeting, which I am sorry about. But I'm my questions have been answered, and I appreciate all of your questions. And then I guess I have one small question. When you guys have like supervisory board meetings, I didn't see on the agenda that there's any spot for like a public meeting spot like there is right now. Like for this, is that something that the district doesn't do? Is like during district-wide meetings, there's no like district school board meetings, there's no public time?
Yeah, I think you might be right, and that might be something we want to think about, because a lot of decisions are now getting made at the supervisory union level, because we also have and I think you do too, we have a pretty much a singular master agreement, and we have a unified school year, a unified school day. So a lot of that stuff happens at the SU level. So you're right. It probably would be nice to have public participation, as you can see tonight, and this is not your fault, but you just have to be so careful with public participation, because it can take a fair amount of time if it's not somewhat controlled.
Agreed.
Just to chime in, for the 12/28 meeting, public comments not related to the agenda is the first agenda item for the SU board meeting on 12/28.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so I guess we do it.
It's
Thank
there.
you. Scott, you had your hand raised.
I'm good. I think we just dealt with the exact issue that I was hoping to deal with.
Okay. Okay, so I want to, Heather, are you all set?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. And then we had another member of the public, and I don't know if you had specific things unrelated to the agenda that you wanted to. Okay. So I want to move on to the budget. Or not the budget, which would be the items for discussion. And were there any additions to the agenda that anybody needs? Okay, hearing none. Ed, you're up.
It's me again, Nikki. I'm gonna.
Okay, thanks, Christine.
Ed and I work together. Actually, we were working together this weekend because we had some adjustments to what I presented last month. So I shared this report with you already. I just made some adjustments on it. So I'm just going to present my screen, and Ed will chime in when I get lost or need his expertise. Okay. All right, can you see my screen?
So we can see ourselves.
Okay, then I'm in the right. Hold on, I'm doing well. Hold on.
There you go. Okay.
Click the right tab. How's that?
Hey, now we got it.
Yeah.
All right.
That was very fast. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So I will go over. I'll go over these slides probably quickly through some of them because not much has changed since last month when I presented. But please, since I can't see you, just stop me if you have questions. All right. So as you know, that we categorize things in the budget in elementary, which is K-6, secondary 7-12, and then location-wide. So those are the three breakdowns of how we categorize items within the budget. Our estimated enrollment for FY22, I anticipate it will change somewhat. We'll get some home study kiddos back and have some people move in. I heard today we have 2 new ones potentially moving in after the winter break, after the January break. So, but that's a rough estimate of what we think we'll have next year. And where our high schoolers are potentially heading for high school next year, and Ed uses that data to help figure out the high school tuition budget line. And they're broken down through all the years of high school. Okay. So just a little bit of focus on the budget. I did add this slide. The budget that you're going to see reflects a plan that addresses the vision and goals outlined in our continuous improvement plan. some of the positive takeaways from structures related to teaching during a pandemic that we've learned about, and connections to our newly adopted strategic plan, which you've all seen, and we're working on how we're going to roll that out, embed it, and work with. I'm sorry, there's a terrible echo. Am I the only one hearing it?
I can't hear it.
Okay, it's just me then. Okay. So just to kind of keep you in the loop, this budget also supports a strong, well-implemented MTSS system, and we've been working to revamp our MTSS system for the past couple of years, which means what we're really trying to do is strengthen our first two, we call them levels or tiers, where the universal instruction happens through best practices around teaching and learning, which refers to UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning, and differentiated instruction. So our hope is if we increase capacity in those realms, we'll have less students that need specific student support plans at the targeted level later on. And another really exciting piece of this system that we're slowly changing and implementing or revising is we are working closely with our the special education staff and helping each other to build a bridge so that we, if we have some questions about a certain student in the past, that student might be referred to special ed so that we can gain the information that we need about that student. But in this system, it's more fluid, and I can say, hey, can you run a quick speech assessment on this kiddo, or other kinds of academic assessments, so that we get the information that we need so that we can provide targeted interventions before we get to, the level 4s and 5s. So that means collaboration between staff, co-planning, and just working together, which we've started doing, and it's really exciting. And I think it'll be a really great improvement to our MTSS system. I'll just give a shout out to Brittany this year. As you know, our interventionists are in the classroom, so she is really facilitating MTSS and working on revamping the system. And you guys know Brittany, she's all about data, so she is making improvements using data as we speak. Last thing, this budget supports staffing patterns and schedules that allow for the implementation of co-teaching model with attention to teaching mindsets and skills along with content, and that comes straight from our strategic plan. A focus on interdisciplinary units that really work on student engagement, collaboration, feedback, and those core competencies that are in the strategic plan. Place-based outdoor education, and class structures and sizes that support student mental health, wellness, and voice and choice. So those are all the things we're shooting for. I asked Brittany a couple weeks ago to run some behavior data to show what we're seeing based on the new structure. And when I say new structure, it's collaborative teaching in the classroom, small class sizes. So Brittany, I don't know if you want to unmute and share anything from the data that you've collected and organized here?
So at the top, you can see HHB cases are the bullying, harassment, and hazing cases. Rule 4500 is seclusion and restraint. And then the other two columns are the documented behaviors through our Swiss system. The first column there is the documented behaviors prior to December, because I wanted to be able to compare this year to last year. And then total for the fiscal year. So as you can see, I mean, the numbers are just pretty amazing in terms of, behaviors just being down significantly at this point. We've had no HHB cases and no Rule 4500 incidents that we've had to report this year. And as you can see, I went all the way back to FY17. And every year it's gotten better, but this year is substantial.
And some of that, and Brittany can chime in, is I think attributed to the fact that teachers are with kids in these pods, and they're really developing strong relationships with kids. And because there's another adult in the room, they can often step out and have a quick
Mhm.
collaborative problem-solving conversation when a behavior occurs.
Yeah.
So they don't escalate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and because we have staff right there, they're able to intervene earlier, catch things before they escalate. Get to know the kids a lot better, build relationships, and then know triggers so that they can intervene before things go
Yep.
too far, basically.
Any questions at this point? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on. So these are the budget reductions, which have changed slightly since the last time we met. Supplies has been reduced pretty significantly. We are not budgeting for a regular education BI, and we've taken out some staff training that was in the budget. We do have the halftime LPN still in the budget for roughly $12,000, and I think we have to safely keep that in for the moment. I don't know, where we'll be at next fall, so we did leave that in. So this is the biggest change since the last time we met. This is the total wages in the budget, and it reflects a 4.91 increase, which seems like a lot. And in addition, that halftime LPN is in there. And this is attributed to the contract that was recently negotiated. And Ed worked this weekend to figure out what the cost of that negotiated contract would be. And this is where we're at. I don't know if you have questions about that. It does. I think I can speak about what that means, David. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. In terms of now we have a unified workday in the contract, which was Heartland had a different start, had a designated start and end time of the day, and so now we are all on the same page throughout the SU, which opens up some pretty incredible things for the future, I think, in terms of collaboration among staff and professional development and sharing of resources. So, a big shout out to the negotiation team for getting here. I think as David mentioned recently, they're going to be starting negotiations for the next contract pretty soon. So, are there any questions about this?
And we can also talk a little more later on about these changes, because I think it would be good to ratify. I think Scott can summarize. I think he already sent out an email.
Yeah.
Talking about summarizing those changes, and it would be good to ratify that contract tonight. I know all three associations have ratified.
Great. Okay. Total benefits, as you heard, we're up 10% in premium costs, which sugars out to a 3.95% increase in our budget for healthcare. Contracted services, that's where the BI position lived and some of the staff development that was taken out. So it's an overall decrease of $37,966.
Christine,
Yes.
can we go back for a second?
Mm-hmm.
How did we go up so much between 20 and 21?
We added the SRO position in that fiscal year, so that was a big part of that increase. And we added, that was the year we added Big Picture and Leader and Me as well, which have now come out.
Okay. So that cost difference between 20 and
21.
SRO.
Yeah,
If I go,
yes, correct.
If I go from 20 to 22, though, it's the SRO. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Total maintenance and repair, it's down a little bit. I believe I was looking today, it's some electricity is a little bit down. There's some construction costs that have been reduced and landscaping costs that have been reduced, or a decrease of, 15,000. Transportation, we went over this last time, is being move to the central office ESU budget. So it's a decrease here, but we pay it in our share of the SU budget. So we're keeping our local field trips, athletics, and winter activities in our budget, but the rest of it is now in the SU budget. Communications insurance. This is an increase in the current phone system. I think Larry did his best to estimate what we would pay next year, which is a little bit more. And then our tuition hasn't changed since last time we met. Ed is using vouchers to really try to get an accurate assessment of who's in what school and how much our high school tuition will be for next year. And there's that SU assessment line, which is up, but it's up mostly because of the transportation has been added to that budget. And there will be some reimbursement. I think we get some reimbursement for that, which will now go to the SU. Excess costs, we've reduced a little bit, and this is based on what we know or what we think we know about students on 504s and what they're going to need next year. And there's our supply budget, which is down. And we're just going to be really careful next year, and teachers are aware of that. And with all of those changes, which I want to emphasize, there are no changes to our budget. We are essentially running with exactly what we have this year in our budget. There is still a difference of $311,000 for an increase of 3.06%. And that is the last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing if that's okay.
Yeah.
And we can talk. Okay.
So, Christine or Ed, what will we be carrying forward from our last budget, from the 20 budget?
I'm going to let Ed answer that one.
$154,000.
So on top of the 311,000, we added 154,000.
Yes.
Okay, so it's to the taxpayers, it's going to look like 460,000. Okay, that's not pretty.
So you're saying that, just to be clear, last year, the last fiscal year, we ran a deficit of 154,000?
FY20, yes.
FY20.
FY20's budget, yep. It was the overage, I think, in special ed that gets then dispersed back to the districts. Ed, is that?
I think you also, didn't you have well, maybe not, but I thought you had a couple of move-ins last year for tuition that also affected it, but maybe not. Are we, Ed, are we pretty certain? I know we talked about this with Wethersfield. Are we as certain as we are at Wethersfield about the tuition kids? I mean, is that a, and I'm not talking about the cost of tuition next year per high school, but do we have an accurate count, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we use the same method. I mean, we use using Lori Brown at the central office, and she has used all the vouchers that have been approved. You can't go to high school and get it paid by Heartland unless you have a completed voucher. And then I got the numbers for the projected numbers for 8th grade from Christine, and we just carried those forward. At the last meeting, Colleen wanted to add in a couple of extra tuitions, but I still haven't done that, if that's something the board wants to do. And the number that you're going to carry forward into next year is 151,601.33, not 154.
151, okay.
151,601.03.
I think Christine and Ed have done a great job, and Brittany, I mean, just working together on this budget so you can explain it and understand it. I mean, in some ways, I was talking to Nikki this morning, and just quickly, I mean, it's the same situation. You know, you control what's in your control. What's out of your control, you can't necessarily control it. And I think that most of the reflection of the increases here are due to tuitions, and the number of kids you paying high school tuition for is going up.
Some of the things that you had last year was, your tuition was over by 190,546.
That's right.
You had 2 repairs to the ventilators and the cracked boiler that put your maintenance and repair over by 27,516. And then you had a new kitchen dishwasher that you had to spend that put that over by 9,371.
Thank you, Ed. Scott, you had your hand raised. Where'd you go? There you are. Sorry.
Thank you, Nikki. So I'm embarrassed to say this because I don't know if the other board members know, but we did approve the SU budget a couple of weeks ago, was it? Or was it 1 week ago? I kind of lost track of time right now. So the SU budget is approved. And so this question is about that transportation move. And it's out of our budget, but it goes to the SU budget and gets assessed back to us. And the reason that that's embarrassing to me is because, there was another Heartland board member years ago that said that all their good ideas came to them like a couple of days after the meetings. That's kind of like where I sit. And so, what we pay for transportation is ultimately these contracts that David and Ed negotiate, but it has a lot to do with the miles of roads in our communities and the kids and where they are. Maybe not so much every year by year, but has a lot to do with miles. I'm not seeing how that translates to an SU budget where everything gets divvied up by a 3-year average of the equalized pupil count. I don't understand how that can really work.
The contract itself, if you look at the contract, each one of the towns, that the amount that they're spending is 239,000 in the contract. So your budget would have been 239,000 in the budget in your local budget. Heartland's would have been, Weathersfield's would have been 239. West Windsor or Mount Scottney's would have been 239.
So it's not,
basically what we're doing is moving it because the state doesn't reimburse the towns anymore. So we have to go through a very complicated formula to try to figure out, it's just something I made up to try to figure out what part of the transportation reimbursement each town is supposed to get. So that's why the state is now reimbursing only the supervisory union.
I think what Scott is asking though, Ed,
they built the contract from First Student Transportation of Vermont. If I could send it to the board, it's $239,000 per district.
right. So I think what Scott's asking though, Ed, is then we take that 239 3 times, right? And we've got that basically figured into the assessments, but then we bill it back out, right, by equalized pupil, not by 239, 239, 239. Is that correct?
That's my question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So in other words, because I think, and I don't know, it may be too late in the game and you and I haven't talked about this, whether or not that's an expense, because it is still broken out by the bus company by district, whether or not we couldn't just make
That's
that.
the only reason we asked them specifically to do that.
Right, to break it out by district.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the interesting thing is, given the number of kids that have picked up and the number of road mileages and the sort of the rural nature of, I mean, the towns are very similar in a lot of ways. I mean, but we won't get into all the details, but, Windsor runs less buses, but they also have more runs because they've got, a bunch of other stuff. But anyhow, to make a long story short, I guess that's something we could talk about, whether or not it's fair to bill that transportation assessment back by equalized pupil.
And Ed, can you remind me what our equalized pupil is? Nikki.
I'm using the FY.
Not the number, the percentage, sorry.
32.3%. Okay. 32.03%.
And what's Weathersfield, Ed?
Weathersfield. Weathersfield's 22.7%.
And Mount Scottney's about,
It's the difference. It's 45.27.
yeah. And the truth is, they have West Windsor now, and we're providing a lot more transportation to West Windsor at Mount Scottney, and they've got a lot of back roads and hills. West Windsor is an interesting little landscape too. So I think that's why it's pretty even, but I don't know whether or not, Mount Scottney's taking up 45 point whatever percent of the transportation in the SU. I think that's a good question, Scott, and we don't have time to revisit that tonight, but we can revisit
Well,
that.
I can tell you right now that what your bill would have been for transportation had we not done this, it was $238,114.
Right.
If you break out what the transportation is, which is the total of the transportation is $714,342 for everybody, your bill is $228,000. 227. So you're paying less. You're paying $9,343 less.
Pretty close, but less.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pay less if it's not the right thing to do. I want to pay the correct amount. And
Mount Scottney is paying $85,000 more.
Yeah, you're saying Mount Scottney, because of their equalized pupil percentage, is paying how much more, Ed? 85,000 more?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it might, you and I, Ed, can take a look at that, and then we can go back to the SU board with that issue. I think it's worth a conversation, but it's always tough because we did make that decision to divide everything by equalized pupil.
So are there any other board members that have anything about the budget? I think we won't know how it impacts the taxpayers
Right.
for a while. Ed, do you have any numbers or any idea when the numbers are going to come? I know you don't have the numbers or you'd give them to us.
No, I don't. This again is, these are different times right now. The state is out straight. I don't know when they're going to get numbers out.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of representatives today, and I think, then it's going to be an interesting session. And I am not so certain that, normally by now, Ed would probably have some of the numbers, but I really wonder if they're not waiting till they get back into session. I think it's also tangled up in the rules they want to make around town meetings and school annual meetings. And I think there's going to be, just my guess, if they're smart, they're going to slow it down and give everybody a little more time to figure this out, and maybe even push school annual meetings off to April or May. I know that's tricky, but I think we just don't have the data and the understanding of how this has impacted us. So we'll see.
What rules are you talking about?
I'm talking about the rules. I was referring more to things like the letter that came out from the tax commissioner. There's a whole lot of things tied up in that, including, some state debt that, everybody's taking some responsibility for, and it's based on, some math that I think the legislators want to look at. But, the common level of appraisal, the block grant, the equalized pupil number, the hold harmless on the ADM, those kinds of things, I think the legislature wants to take a look at those. Whether there's any more relief coming from the federal government that can then be passed on to us. And I just think it's all up in the air.
See, it happens in Georgia.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I don't have anything. Budget is what it is.
Scott, you raised your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, I stepped away a few minutes ago. I needed something to eat. And so when I got back, Christine was saying that there was nothing new in the budget. Remember last time we talked about it, Christine, I guess a month ago, there was a proposal for some
Yeah.
hiring, I think. So where's that?
Upon reflection, I just didn't feel like it was the right time. So I asked Ed to take that out. So
Thank you.
that is not, Ed, that's reflected in what I presented tonight.
Thank you. That's what I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said, Scott. I just missed one word. We took what out?
We had talked about, and what we had talked about happened in executive session. So there was a staffing change that we talked about in executive session that we are not going to make. Or that Christine's proposing not to make. That's up to us, but that's where.
It just didn't feel like, I mean, as much as I'd like to go that way, I just don't feel like it's the right time. So.
And I agree. Okay, so I'm ready to keep moving down this agenda. I think we're not going to know anything until our January meeting. Christine knows the ins and outs of this budget like you wouldn't believe, and conveyed that. We've had 2 meetings on the budget, and she conveyed that all to me, and I'm just really impressed with the amount of work that both Christine and Ed have done, and particularly Christine, and really learning the budgeting process over the last 3 years. It's been impressive. So thank you guys very much. And it's not encouraging news, but I think what we've all said is that we're not going to cut K-8 to deal with tuition. So we are going to keep the course, unless you guys say otherwise, but I'm sensing from the lack of conversation that you're on board. Okay, so we'll back to Christine.
All right. I don't have the agenda in front of me. Is it the?
So, yeah, we're on the principal's report.
All right, I get to present again.
Yeah.
It won't be long. I know we've been at this for a while, but let me share my screen. All right. Oh gosh, it's at the end. Hold on. Let me go back to the beginning. It's probably a faster way to do that. Okay. I just wanted to show you, introduce you to our new math teacher, Mr. Michael Butts. Here he is.
See your screen. Yeah.
Can you see it? Not yet?
No.
What do you say?
No, you.
See our meeting.
Me again? Hold on. Let me try again. Got to meet Michael. Oh, I didn't hit share. Hold on.
That'll slow you down.
Well, I was trying to click the tab. Now, okay. How about now?
There we go.
All right, I missed a step. Okay. Let me, oh gosh, no, I don't want to do that. Hold on. I wanted to present. I hit the wrong button. Okay. So here is our new math teacher. Because you can't come in the building, I thought I would snap a picture of him. This is today. He's in his festive holiday shirt, and I just wanted you to see how creative he made this. I don't know, moving mobile cart, so he can move from classroom to classroom. He made that this weekend because, as you heard, our teachers are rotating, not our students. So this is Michael. He's adjusted. He's, becoming a well respected part of our community already. So that's Michael. Our remote week, as you heard from some parents on the line, I think there are some really great reasons for doing the remote week. It is a challenge, and we recognize that. But I wanted to share a little bit of data with you that came back after the remote week. We did poll parents and staff, and so I just have some kind of overviews from the week. We had 44 Heartland parents participate. I think Angie will share out the SU data at a future SU meeting, but I wanted to see how our parents felt the week went. So we had 44 participants, and they're broken down, K4, 5, 8, and families with multiple grade levels of children in multiple grade levels. So he asked a few questions, and there were a lot of comments as well, but I'm just going to share mostly the graphs tonight. We had some families that had a little bit of, had a few tech issues. We tried to break that down. Was it the internet? Was it the Chromebook? Was it the platform? And it was a little of everything. But as you know, we have a pretty incredible tech department who helps us work through these things. So overall, most people didn't have too many issues with technology. This question was about students having difficulty sticking to the daily schedule. Some did, and I think some of the comments talked about there were a lot more expectations this time in terms of what the day looked like, and that was hard, mostly for our younger kiddos. Let's see. We asked about the balance of computer and non-computer activities. Majority felt like it was a pretty good balance. There of course are more requests for non-computer based activities, which we're working on. We recognize that's really hard when that's the mode of engagement. And if our remote learning week met expectations, and we had some pretty good feedback around that as well from parents. And did the remote week, how did it compare to the spring? And it was, overall much better. Staff had more time to prepare, had schedules created. So overall, it was the feedback was quite positive. And did parents feel supported during the remote week? And most did. There were a couple of parents, some things we learned in the middle grades. It's a lot of meetings and assignments, and parents. A couple of parents said, "How do we get help when we need it right away?" So we'll work on that. And then the staff had a similar survey about how the week went. 31 staff members participated. We definitely wanted to make sure we provided enough time for the staff members to prepare for teaching remotely. Mostly, staff felt like we gave them enough time. I know we learned that when we give that time is important. So when this round came about for preparing for after the winter break, we thought, Wednesday would be perfect. But really, if you're sending packets home for kids to use during that remote week, Wednesday is not an ideal time for staff to prepare and send those packets home with kids. So we did allow for some additional afternoon time for staff to prepare. Did the materials you prepared or had access to meet your students' needs? They felt mostly that was the case. Relative to their experience last spring, how did this one rate? And overall, staff said it went much better. And I'm sorry, I'll go back. Are there any questions around the survey results, remote week comments that you want to share?
I just appreciate that you guys did that because it gives us good feedback and makes for room for improvement and makes us realize how it's impacting our families better.
Good. We found it useful too. And there were some really, the comments, there were a range from not enough work to give us more work. I mean, there were lots of, there was a range. So we will work to try to meet everybody's needs. COVID updates, that might be on the agenda separately, and David can certainly,
let's do it right here. I mean, go ahead.
Okay, so I just kind of brainstormed like what's on our radar right now. So mostly you saw the feedback. It was pretty positive about how the remote week went after Thanksgiving. And we've had some positive feedback, although tonight, obviously some parents had some questions around having a week after the holiday, but a lot of parents that I spoke with appreciated it. And I know that the staff, it gives them a level of security, I guess, or they feel more safe knowing they have a week and parents have a week to kind of stay put before they come back to school. As you heard earlier, we are in the planning stages of potentially increasing our in-person instruction. And so we've been meeting regularly with the union and helped the task force to help make that decision. Our next round of surveillance testing is January 6th, so that's during the remote week. Staff have signed up already to come in, and there's a window of time where they can come in and have their COVID test before we return to in-person. I will share that, there have been some voices sharing that staff are stressed. So as an administrative team, we're working on addressing why that is, what's causing that, what we can do to mitigate it. We've talked about doing a weekly kind of temperature check with some questions around their stress and what's feeding into it and what we can do to help. And I think everybody's just pretty fatigued right now, as you all are, I'm sure as well, just in dealing with the pandemic in general. And then the last thing is just we're gonna have that remote week from the 4th to the 8th and made sure that we gave teachers time to prepare for that week. I don't know if I missed anything, David, if you want to weigh in.
No, I think I'm just looking at my list compared to your list, but I think you've basically hit on it all. Yeah, I just think the discussion tonight, while it was lengthy under public participation, I mean, it sort of outlined some of the issues and some of the, potential disagreements I think that folks have. I think it's interesting that two of our strongest voices that have come before us to argue for more time or maybe do away with these remote weeks, and it was done respectfully. I really appreciate that input from that parent tonight. But and we did have one, I think, a few weeks ago, and they're both teachers in other districts, surrounding districts that are struggling with this. And I don't know whether it's because they like their plan and it's working for them. But I have to say, it's not like I sit around or Christine sits around and makes up these schedules. There's a lot of voices that go into this, of people who are directly involved in the day-to-day operations of those buildings. And I think it's been a heroic effort on the part of our staff to do what they are doing. And on top of that, to ask them to go further. I think they're willing, but it's going to take some time to get there. But one of the things I like most about our plan is the fact that we have created these pods, and kids aren't crossing pods, staff, they're not moving around the building. And I like the ownership that the kids and staff have for each other. And I'd hate to lose that right now. But yeah, I think you did a good job summarizing, Christine.
Okay.
And I wanted to kind of say the same thing. I'm really impressed with the level of planning that's gone into this. I think it was important for the board to hear some of the public comments that have been directed at us. I've been responding to people with a lot of the exact same questions. But for the most part, very few people have complained about our scheduling, and it seems like most people are kind of happy with it. And honestly, I just keep telling people that there's no perfect answer, and that there's a lot of work that went into this, and I appreciate all the work that went into this, and this is the answer that we came up with, and it's working. And so
I appreciate that, Nikki. I think we've talked a lot about the benefits for students, which is the primary concern. I mean, kids do better in person for the most part, and so if we can, move that time in the afternoon to in school time, that would be a huge benefit. It does take a lot of planning, because now we're going to have to shift all the afternoon schedules with support staff and special education services that we have in place. That gets impacted, and there is crossover. I mean, some of our support staff members in the afternoon are working in other schools with high school students, so it's complicated. But we've already started trying to figure it out, and I'm confident that we can do it. The conversation is with lots of parties, as David said. So we'll get there.
Colleen.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Christine. Colleen.
Say so. Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of reiterate what has already been said, which is that I really appreciate the thought that's going into it. And I would rather err on the side of caution in any situation concerning COVID. We're not, I got off, I talked with my family over the weekend, and they're in Memphis, Tennessee, which happens to be the worst statistically place to be in the world for COVID right now. And they're trying to decide whether they're going to have church person or not. You know, I think that I keep thinking about that when we're talking about this earlier, which is, you know, the decision making is all over the place here in terms of the models that are at different schools, but all over everywhere, the decision making is really all over the place. And I only bring that up to point out that this is all so new that regardless of what models are working, you know, what's the definition of, we don't even know what the definition of working is yet. And I don't think that there's numbers that could support our model versus anybody else's model anywhere. And that what we're really faced with is being smart and making good gut decisions. And I feel like we've done that. And I don't have any regrets. I know it's frustrating for a parent that's got to go to work and figure out a week's worth of how their kids are going to be taken care of. That's, you know, that's frustrating. You want your work to line up. I mean, especially if you're a teacher, that's maybe one of the reasons you teach is that your schedule lines up with your kid's schedule. So when it doesn't, that's got to be, I know it sucks, but I think it's really smart to do, to have these remote weeks after holidays, to give people a chance to be at home in case they've been in contact with people that are sick. I mean, we all know the obvious, but I just want to say that I think that we're making really good, you are making really good decisions, that we are as a group.
Well, thanks, Colleen. That's good to hear. It's not easy.
I appreciate that. And the other thing we've tried to do is make these announcements early, which has a downside to it, right? I mean, you know, we don't wait to see what this district does or that district does. I feel bad that and I'm not trying to knock the state, but that they really did throw this to the local districts and everybody had to make their own decisions. And there are some supervisory unions in our southeast region that are going to take 2 weeks off after the holidays. There are some that are, you know, so it's really just tricky to do. But we've appreciated all the board support, and I do wish we could do something regionally, because I think it would be a lot easier. It would be easier for the teachers, because then they could be home with the kids. And I think that's the problem. When you've got a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old, and some of you on this call do, I mean, and you have to work. I mean, that's not, you know, that's not easy. It's not, you know, it's not just a natural form and function for a 6-year-old to log on and stay engaged while nobody's watching. But I think our kids have done amazing, and the staff has done amazing work. And I think we can extend it. I really do. I agree with Christine. I'm hopeful. I think we can. I don't think it'll be a full day, but I think it'll be close to a full day. And I think that'll make a big difference for teachers and parents and staff. So we'll keep you.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of staff today, and I reminded them how stressed out and worried they were back this summer before we went back to school in person. And you were all on those calls, you remember. And they're doing it, and they're doing an incredible job. And yes, this is a change, a shift, but I think in the long run, it'll actually make things a little easier on them, because as they've expressed, they feel like they have two different jobs. Like, they're in person, then the kids go and they, you know, run to the bathroom and get something to eat, and then they get ready for the afternoon remote, which, you know, they put a lot of time and effort into, and not everybody shows up, right? So it's a lot of work, and maybe not what they hope it would be in terms of participation, and they want to do a good job. So that doesn't feel good to them. So I think being in school longer might make it easier all around. So we'll keep you posted. Two more quick slides. Just letting you know, we have about, at this point, 14 kids returning on January 25th. Families that are choosing to send their kids back to in-person instruction. It looks like, based on the grade level, we're not going to have to make any changes in rooms. We have capacity in the rooms where kids are returning to add additional students. So, but
that's also a tribute too to the fact that people are feeling that you have kept it safe.
Yeah. So 14 at this point. We still have some we haven't decided yet. So it could grow. And then just this week, I just wanted to end on a positive. We've got a couple of days of school. Obviously, we weren't prepared for the amount of snow we got. We had John and I had lots of conversations about the carports. Do we leave them up? Do we take the tarps back? And we both, he thought that the carport covers could hold 5 to 8 inches, which was what was expected, and he couldn't keep up. Some did get damaged. When he can catch his breath, we're going to take down the ones that kind of collapsed and see what we can put together. But that some of them are buried, to be honest with you. But the kids are enjoying the snow. I know first grade went out in the woods today to do some science tracking of animals in the woods and the snow, and so they're still making great use of the outdoor space. We're encouraging everybody to dress festive today and tomorrow. We've got anybody that wanted to participate in decorating a door or a window so kids can see them on the outside. We're doing, Brittany and I hope Brittany may not know this, we're delivering hot chocolate and candy canes tomorrow, and Craig and his staff are making lunch for the staff at the end of the day, and we'll deliver that to them. We usually get together for a holiday celebration. We can't do that this year, but wanted to just show them how much we appreciate them in the way.
And Christine, we get to wear our matching Christmas sweaters, right?
Yes, we
Tomorrow.
do. Yes, we do. Poor Brittany. I am all about dressing for the holidays and kind of forcing Brittany into joining me, which she's a good sport about. So
Such a festive spirit.
Yeah,
I did offer this new sweater Christine got me to my son for his ugly sweater, and he said no, it's a bit much. So if that puts anything into perspective,
we need pictures in the next principal's report.
Yeah. It'll be fun. Anytime, just like doing anything remotely normal just makes people smile and feel good. So it is worth it. But anyway, that concludes my report. And if you have any questions or comments.
I just have a quick question, not having to do with festiveness, but just like around staff wellness and stuff. Do we have an employee assistant program, like an EAP that?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, I don't know if there's a good way to really promote it, because they're always underused. Yeah. And it seems like, and to really kind of push it and really kind of sell that. And I know we've been doing that a lot in my own work. And yeah, I mean, I just called them for financial advice, and I'm like, wow, this is free. This is amazing. Yeah. So that's really it was just so great that, such a great resource that they're there for a myriad of things.
Yeah, we have mentioned them. It came up at a meeting last week. I can't remember which meeting, but yeah, I think they are underutilized.
Yeah.
But it's good to remind staff that they're there. We're relying on our trauma champions, who have done a lot of training in how to support traumatic things that are happening, and this is kind of traumatic for people. So yeah, we're working on ways that we can support each other. But everybody's tapped for sure.
Okay, we're on the superintendent's report. Nope, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was saying that's what I like about Christine's report, because usually she does the superintendent's report within the her report. I don't have a whole lot to add, other than I mentioned the legislative pieces that are going to be forthcoming and negotiations. I want to thank Scott and the rest of the team for pulling that together. It was a long day that day, but I think we, and I saw Scott's quick summary to the board. I think it was because of COVID, we left a lot of items on the table, and we have to go back now within the next few weeks and start all over again, but we'll bring those items back. But we did get that, we did get what I considered was a big piece, because the Unified School Day affects a lot of the transient staff, special education, people that are, the way we organize for COVID, it's going to be really, really helpful, I think, in the end. So that's good. And then just the conversation that we just had about what we do after the, not so much after the break, that remote week has been decided, but what do we do to extend this day? Because I do think I think there are more than just a couple of parents out there that want us to really take a look at that. And I think we should. And I think we will. So, but that's it from my end at this point. We do have to make a decision on, ratifying the contract, but also on, and I see it's next on the agenda, the tuition request.
Yep. Colleen, is your hand still raised, or did you raise it again?
She's an old hand at this.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So I'm going to check the superintendent's report off. I'm also checked COVID update off, because I think we covered that as part of the superintendent's report. So we are on to the tuition request. And so.
Did you write the motion down, Nikki? You did?
Yeah. Are we supposed to put the name of the school in the motion or not?
No, I think he said it's all public information and it's all part of the case. So I think you can use the family's name and the school name. I think that's fine.
So I think I've got a motion written down. If you guys are all okay with it, I'll just ask somebody to move what I read. The Heartland Board is going to deny the request of the Buckleys to send their children to the New England Classics Academy. And we strongly urge the Buckleys to pursue the right to appeal to the Agency of Education on the advice of counsel.
Nicole, we're gonna read. It's the tuition. I mean, they can send their children there if they want to. The tuition is what we're not going to do.
Say tuition?
You didn't say tuition.
You might not.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
the motion was to deny the tuition request.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so deny the
Tuition request for the Buckley family to send there.
Okay,
So-
do you want me to read it again? Or
Go ahead, try it again. And
how are
it's
you doing on this?
just for the record, it's New England Classical Academy.
New England Classical Academy.
Classical Academy.
So the motion would be to deny the tuition request for the Buckley family to the New England Classical Academy, and we strongly urge the family to pursue the right to appeal to the Agency of Education on the advice of counsel. Okay, does anybody want to move that?
So moved.
Okay, Colleen, is there a second? Beth? Is there any further discussion? Okay. So we will now vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so that was unanimous.
Yeah, and just as a note, I did forward that brief. I know it does make for some interesting reading, because it'll give you the context sort of what's happening here. So I don't know how many of you like reading stuff like that, but I'll send them out when they come in. Some people like reading that stuff, some people don't, but I kind of do like reading it, but I'll send it along.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay. Moving on. We have an update on the anti-racism task force. Righting Wrongs has met. David, you have a question in the comment box. Righting Wrongs has met with the task force. They've met with the administrators, and they have met with a group of teachers with a few community members. And from that, they have drafted a policy that I received yesterday. And they've also drafted a set of procedures that we can discuss. And so the next steps there is to take the drafts that they've given us and bring them just to the members of the task force. And the task force will review it and figure out where we go from there, which would be to bring it out to the community and get broader support for it. So that's where that is. Does anybody have any questions?
Just to clarify, Nicole, you're talking internal task force as in board members only, right?
Correct.
Thanks.
Yes. Yep. Colleen, did you have something?
Yeah, I think you partially answered a question I had, I think based on what was discussed at the SU meeting. We didn't really talk about it by much, which was whether or not more members of the community would be involved, or that we'd be communicating this with more members. I had a couple of parents that had approached me that were interested in being involved, but I don't think that they were able to get in on the one meeting that there was. So
yeah, and
I'm hoping that people that have concerns or questions or things they want to share will have that opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and the meeting that happened was a listening session. It wasn't I'm going to phrase this so poorly. It wasn't a productive meeting in that they were producing something.
Yes.
It was a listening session to make sure that what they were drafting fits with what's going on. So I don't think there was space for everybody to participate because it would just be too big. And I think that we needed them to get a sense of where our communities were with respect to anti-racism. And now that they have that sense, now we can start moving forward and growing. And we now have something produced so we can grow from there.
And so will part of the process be to discuss that policy as a living document?
Yes.
Things that people like or don't like about it, and or would change. Okay, great.
Yeah. And again, while we do want community input, it will be an SU policy. So it will be up to the board members, the SU board members to, they're going to be the owners of it. Did I cover that?
Yeah, it sounds like you did it, but I do want to reiterate something Colleen said or reinforce it. I mean, I think there are a lot of other people out there, some community members, some staff members who really want to be part of this ongoing process. And I think whether it's community forums to sort of dissect the policy or look at look at the ramifications of the policy, or I think the SU board also has to, in addition to revising, reviewing, and adopting that policy eventually, figure that piece out as well, because I think that conversation is going to be critical. And maybe I'm repeating what Colleen said, but it was so brilliant. I wanted to repeat it again. A lot of people want to do this.
Yeah. Yep.
I try to only say the brilliant things.
Yeah. I know there are just people out there that really want to get involved. Yeah.
So that brings us to our last item on the agenda, which is the new item that David added in the flow. So that was to ratify the contract. And David, do you want to go over again what the contract is for us?
Yeah, I think, and Scott did a great job, I think, in the email he sent out to everyone. The truth is, there were a lot of wording changes, always some typos that needed to get corrected, and also we had to once and for all officially have the contract reflect 3 associations and 3 school districts now, not 4. So that all that wording has changed in the contract. There were a couple of little things we did. We allowed for a couple of personal days to be used for religious holidays. I think sometimes we had, we've got holidays that are sort of built around a Christian calendar, and there are a lot of other holidays, a Judeo-Christian calendar to some degree, and there are a lot of holidays that fall outside the boundaries of those religious institutions that some people want to take a day, or two to reflect during those religious holidays. So the board approved that. We also have a curriculum right now for summers. It's only for those who are volunteering, but I think it'll encourage folks to work a little bit in the summertime, because that's the time when teachers can get the most work sometimes and the best work done, not at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon or a Thursday afternoon. And that curriculum right now, because up until now we've had to pay the per diem, but now it'll be about I think it's $30 an hour. I was looking to see if I had it in front of me, but I don't. And then the other 2 big ones we talked about, one is the unified school day. Matter of fact, Heartland had one of the most, I thought, one of the more unusual most unusual language for school day in the contract, where they actually defined the school day. It said the school day shall not start before, I think, 7:45, Christine, and shall end at
2:53.
53.
Yeah.
I've worked in a lot of districts, and it's rare that you define the starting time and the ending time, because it really locks you into and it has been an issue in the 9 years I've been here. It's come up several times in terms of wanting to start a little earlier or end a little later, or look at the number of hours that reflects, and you couldn't do it. So we were able to do that. And if you add up the time, the 7:45 to 2:53, the Heartland staff was actually working 22 minutes less than everybody else in the supervisory union. So in order to accomplish that unified schedule, we had to compensate the Heartland teachers, and it couldn't be just a one-time compensation, because they're going to be working 22 minutes longer in perpetuity. So it was basically that starting January 1, they're going to get an extra step. And that was that salary adjustment that that Christine was talking about. Most of the other districts are going to have about a 3.25% salary increase, new money. Heartland ends up being around 4%. So that's the difference, is what Heartland had to pay through the generous negotiations of Scott to get that unified school day across the SU. And I think it was a good trade. I know Christine and Brittany have wanted this to happen, and now it happened. The health benefits are tied into the state negotiated plan, but I think that's essentially it. Scott, did I forget anything?
No, thank you very much. That sounds about right, and it was a significant trade.
Yeah,
significant,
right.
But it was making me, whatever. I feel better about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I know I emailed you, but I just wanted to say publicly how much your work was appreciated, and what you accomplished is a huge deal. So thank you.
Well, it definitely wasn't me. Bill Yates and David.
The team, yes, the team.
Definitely the team. So.
Yeah. So I think the motion, the motion would be to ratify the negotiated union master agreement and actually it's for the 2020-2021. It's the year we're in. So if somebody wanted to make that motion, that would be great.
So moved.
I think that's appropriate that Scott moved that. Who's the second? Okay, Colleen was first. Okay, is there any further discussion? Nope, it's 8:25. And we know that these guys have put a ton of work into this. So all those in favor, and David, can you read the motion again?
Yeah, the motion, and Wendy, if you didn't get it, the motion would be to ratify the master agreement negotiated between the school board of directors and the union for the 2021 school year.
Who had the second?
Colleen.
Thanks.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Or wave.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have another unanimous vote.
We're on a roll tonight.
Yes, we are. Okay, so setting the next agenda. And I need a new spot on my piece of paper here. There's too many notes. Okay,
What's the date of that meeting?
that would be a good place to start with our next agenda, huh? It looks like
the 18th, which is a holiday.
Yes, it is.
I think we ran into this last year.
Did we vote to approve the budget?
No, because we need to know the impact on taxes before we can.
Or we wait for the assessment for,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So we want to do the 19th?
That works for me.
Tuesday's bad for people?
Tuesdays are okay for me.
Scott, you're muted.
Can you do the 19th, Scott?
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, it's just, we are bumping up against the select board meeting again, and Nikki's house is feeling that, and this house is feeling that. And
Yep.
but of course, in the community, I mean, I don't know, I haven't heard any complaints about it, but.
Is it
So-
on the Tuesday?
No, this
No,
Think
That's
about
Monday.
yeah.
if we can avoid it anytime, I think it's helpful.
Yeah, I would like that.
I have a library board. The library board meeting, unfortunately, is Tuesday the 19th. But if everyone else can make it, and that's the best date. You can go with it, and I could miss, or those meetings tend to be shorter too, so I could probably join.
Wednesday.
What time do those meetings start, Sarah?
They start at 6:30, unfortunately. So there is, the overlap is probably fairly significant.
What about? No, I don't want to do that.
I could do the 20th or the 21st too. I could do any night that week.
Yeah. I'm wondering if we want to go earlier in order to get this budget settled, but I think that based on what you said, David, it may be not as much of an issue as I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the 20th.
Oh, well, I see what you mean. I see what you mean in terms of,
Like usually we'd be rushing, but I didn't get that sense. And I guess if you guys get that sense, then we'll change the meeting date.
no, that's a good point. Yeah, meaning that we could also meet,
Previous week.
yeah, either the 11th or the 13th. That's a good point, Nikki. I really don't think we're going to be in that position, but we'll know by then. So it might be better to be safe than sorry and have something that week so that we can adopt a budget.
So is Weathersfield on the 12th?
They're on the 12th, right?
Do you guys want to look at the 11th?
That's a Monday, obviously.
But that doesn't overlap with the select board because that's every other week, right? Yeah. Anybody in favor or opposed?
It's fine with me.
Yeah.
11th work.
Okay, let's do the 11th.
Going once, going twice. Okay.
6
11th.
o'clock again.
Yeah. So David, you're going to invite us?
I will invite you, a matter of fact, right now.
Awesome.
It's coming right at you. Wait a second. Hold on. I think we got it. Yeah. All right. Good. So let me do that right now. The 11th, 6 to 8, or whenever we're done, right? Okay. So you should have that coming at you right now.
Okay, so back to what the agenda is. Being that I wrote the word FY22 instead of agenda, I think we'll look at the FY22 budget.
Yeah.
Clearly. We'll do the principals report.
Superintendent report, COVID updates.
Yeah. I think everything's going to stay, except we don't have to.
Yeah, I think the budget will be the big one.
Yeah. And we'll get rid of the tuition. So it would be the same agenda, except we would get rid of the tuition request and we wouldn't have the added contract ratification. Yeah, I think that would cover it. Okay. I'll take a motion.
Actually, just as a heads up, I think that week of the 11th is the principal search. There's going to be a few meetings that week in Weathersfield to interview those candidates. But I feel confident that between Christine and Angie and Ed, you could get through it, without me if you had to. So I think you should stay with it.
We're almost done.
I think, yeah. And I'll get your input beforehand if you
Right. Yep.
Okay. I didn't.
I move.
Colleen moves. Any seconds? Beth seconds. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That's unanimous. Thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy holidays. Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas.